What do you think about the difference between like a big apartment complex versus just single family homes, residential?
I'm so glad we got here. And let me take you guys back to '06. Let's talk '06 residential. So '06, if you don't know, that was pre-crash because most people talk about '08. So this is what happened in 2006. 51% of our loans originated were ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages, 51%. I believe it might have been 19% of those were what's called pick a payment. Do you guys remember what pick a payment? Pick a payment was essentially negative amortization. You had 4 payments. You could pay the 30-year full PITI, 15-year PITI, interest only, or negative am, which meant $500 below the payment. We'll add it to the back of the debt. Pick a payment.
Wow.
Guess which much people picked? Pick a payment, right? It's the lowest payment by far because you're just adding the debt.
Yeah.
Those are now illegal, but they were very common in '06. So in '06, we had a lot of speculation. Everybody thought residential would go to the moon. People were saying residential never crashes. We had adjustable rate mortgages on steroids, and we know how that ended in residential. It blew up. I want you to now go to 2023, multifamily. Grant Cardone, all these syndicators are going out doing value add apartment buildings. We saw more transactions in 2023 in multifamily than we'd seen in decades. We saw assets trade 2 and 3 times in 18-month periods because people were just speculating, and the cap rates kept going lower and lower, and people were financing this with shorter and shorter bridge debt, having bad assumptions about rent growth and expenses, and all of that is blowing up right now. So my prediction for multifamily is there's going to be a lot of losses and opportunities in 2025. I believe the greatest opportunity for wealth building is going to be in commercial properties. I think residential has already seen the appreciation, unfortunately. I don't see a lot of pain building there. So again, prices don't go up or down very much, but I personally am excited about, once again, 1031ing a house like I did Norris Drive into more multifamily buildings. So there's a chance Olivia and I double or triple our portfolio because we sell houses and buy multifamily in 25 and 26.
What areas do you think are going to be going down the most?
I think it's going to be the ones with the most new development coming. So again, looking at the map, it's the Sun Belt, which we're already seeing. I do think there are some markets that have the combination of tax hits and insurance hits that make it doubly expensive, like Austin resets every year. We have a lot of the Southeast and Florida and the Gulf Coast, Louisiana, in trouble because of insurance. So I think there's a lot of, you can just look at the map and see the pain in that kind of where the Gulf comes into the to the US. I think that's where a lot of the pain is. But again, if you step back from today, how do you get wealthy? How do you get wealthy? I believe getting wealthy is 3 steps. Step 1 is you have to create disposable or discretionary income, right? You have to have something left over at the end of the month that you can save. Then you have to become elite at something. I chose a very, very small footprint way back in the day to become elite at, better than anybody else. It could be classic cars, it could be stocks, it could be whatever it is. It could be fish tanks and coral, right? Whatever you choose to become elite at. And then you have to, you have to do that for a decade, right? Wealth is created by ownership over decades. The other thing you should really be looking at is, what is the net worth of renters versus owners? It's very clear if you own assets.
But now part of me would say that the difference between that is because people are forced to save, and the type of person to buy a house is probably the type of person to also be probably more prone to budget, have a higher income, make a little more money, just overall. And that forced savings.
I don't know. Let's play with
30
that.
years.
Let's play with that a little bit.
Yeah.
So when at least when I step back and I read stats about the average American, what is it, like 80% of us live paycheck to paycheck?
Something like that.
Something like that, right? And if we look at home ownership rates, it's like 67%, roughly 67, 68%. So I'm not sure I buy that. I'm not sure I buy the fact that homeowners have some natural ability to save more than renters. Just looking at the stats.
But I think also that home ownership rate includes inheritances.
Oh, I'm sure it does. Yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of people would just get a home.
Okay.
Maybe move in or, have access to it.
Yeah. I guess where I will agree with this is it is a forced savings, right? Because one of the things, again, you read in Rich Dad, Poor Dad book is your home a liability, right? That's a whole thing people get wrapped around. I just step back and look at time is going to go by. I'm over 50. Both of you are certainly under 40, if not under 30. And when I step back and realize where was wealth created, it was in owning assets. I think about my mom, who bought a home in 1977 in the Silicon Valley. The only reason she was able to have any semblance of retirement is she sold that house. We never moved, same house I grew up in. She sold in, I don't know what it was, 2015, 2016. Mm. So again, it's a forced savings account for a lot of folks. The other thing we need to realize, to your point of buying the 600K house, 2 point, whatever it is, your shelter is fixed, X insurance and taxes, tidbits. Renters can't say that, right? One of the things in this whole renters cheaper is zoom out. Look what's happening to rent over the next decade or so. You think rent's going to go down, right, in the next decade, especially with less development of homes? So it's absolutely cheaper today, but will it be forever? And the other thing I would ask you guys to look at is we've kind of seen this movie before. We've seen an environment where rates went up 500 basis points, 600 basis points. Think 1981, 1982, 1983. 1981 is still the least affordable housing ever, even worse than today. We still did 2 million transactions, a lot of cash purchases like today. It has been this bad before, but again, it's just transactions will go down. That's what's happening today.
So how are you navigating today's market? Because I'm looking as well, and I check every single day in the Las Vegas market. Yep. I've yet to see any property that makes sense to buy that is either not a huge fixer, so you have to put a ton of money just to make it work and time, or just you're going to lose money every month. And so from my perspective, I'm like, why would anyone buy for cash flow in Vegas? It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
I'm looking in Vegas. I actually just have a show called Buying Vegas. Olivia and I just moved here, so I'm trying to create a new buy box for Vegas. So it is tough. It's really hard to cash flow. I don't think, again, I'm still learning it, so I don't know it as well as you yet. I think I'm going to have to change what I do. So I've been a long-term, year lease, month-to-month guy for 25 years. I may have to go to finished midterm. I may have to buy a house that is non-HOA so I can add a casita or an ADU in the back to Goose. So I think you just have to get more creative and look for opportunities. I'm still very much early, but I will be buying a rental in probably Henderson.
Yeah. I think the only thing that might make sense is building an apartment. Like that could be the only thing, but even then land is so expensive. Is that going to take you 3 years to build, 200 units or something like that? How much is that going to cost? Yeah. What's the downtime worth? Yeah. And then by the time you're finished with it, would you have been better off just buying a treasury?
Yeah. So I follow a lot of people in the commercial space because I think that's where the big opportunity is. If you have the capital, I think the commercial market, again, defined as 5 units and above, is where a lot of pain is coming in 2025. I think there's a lot of commercial banks who are extending and pretending on bridge debt. There's a lot of shadow banking going on with non-QM loans that they just have to clean up. And I think there's a lot of value add deals that aren't going to be added. So we're going to be able to pick up stuff 60, 70 cents on the dollar. Yeah. So I wouldn't be building right now. I think you can buy stuff at a discount shortly.
I guess what I worry about is in a lot of those cases, because I've also paid a really close attention to the commercial market. Sure. And you hear all these stories of, the debt's coming due pretty soon and they're locked in at, 3% and now it's going to adjust at 5 or 6% and they're going to be losing money on that. I'm afraid that all it takes to keep it going is the Fed coming in and saying, all right, well, we're going to backstop some of these banks and we're going to subsidize some of these rates so that the market doesn't crash. There's so many variables that they could throw in there to just keep it going.
No, there's no question. The bank could create a short-term bank funding program for commercial loans. It'd be fixed tomorrow.
Yeah.
They could. I don't know that the Fed really cares about the shadow banking system. I would argue that the Fed, specifically Powell, wants to see more regulation and wants to see pain there. Now, it's not going to happen to JP Morgan or Citi or any of the big banks, but the non-banks, the mutual funds, the Wall Street funds, the debt funds, it wouldn't shock me if Powell sort of smiles that those guys are having to take some losses.
So what's your prediction for the rental market? Just across the United States, just overall.
So I think there's 2 rental markets. I think there's multifamily and I think there's single family homes. I think multifamily apartment rentals are going to go negative. I think they're going to go down. I think we have supply coming online specifically in the Sun Belt. It would not shock me if it goes down 3-4%. Single family homes, flat to plus 1%. Again, I think a lot of what we've seen in the last 4 years was too much too fast. To kind of to your points, right? We've had this big run up in rent, this big run up in prices, and the only way to fix affordability, there's three things you could do: lower prices, lower rates, increase income. As I sit here today, I think we need 5 years of wages going up. We finally have wages higher than inflation. I think that continues going forward. I think it's just going to be years for wages to come up. And to that end, transactions are going to stay way, way down, right? We did 6 million transactions. I think in 2023, we're going to be low fours. We have a broken housing market. This is the first broken housing market since 1981. Yeah. The move-up buyer is not playing. They're staying in their homes longer. Turnover used to be 8 years. It's probably going to go to 12 years. It's just, the market's not, you're not going to sell your 600K house. It's now 700 because you got this low rate. I think a lot of people are making that choices. So we're going to need time for wages to catch up.
What's your solution to this? If you had a magic wand and can fix the housing market, how would you do it?
If I could wave a magic wand, I would encourage every public builder, small and mom builder, to build smaller homes. For too long, we've been building what was called McMansions. Yeah. We've seen the average square foot for the last 20 years increase by something like 30%. If I had a magic wand, I would go back and build what they were doing in the 50s, the 997 square foot, 1.5. I would build some 2.2s. I would just build smaller homes. And I'm not talking condos with shared walls. I'm talking smaller homes, yes, on smaller lots, but I want single family homes. I think Lennar is the first public builder to try this. They built some 661 square feet in San Antonio. They got some sub 1,000 in Sacramento. But if I could do anything, I would encourage smaller. We need entry-level homes. That's the big piece that's missing today is entry level.
So it's funny, that was actually in my video yesterday where I covered shrinkflation in the housing market.
Oh, nice.
So building has gone back to the same square footage that we were in 2010.
Correct.
And building since the 1980s has increased by double. So what used to be 1,400 square feet is now the average home for a new construction is like 2,800 square feet. Now it's down to like 26. More builders are building, instead of walk-in closets, they're building a smaller closet that's not walk-in in exchange for building another bedroom.
There you go.
So you're finding a lot more of those. I tend to think that for builders, it's more profitable to pack in the square footage. And if you're charging, $150 a square foot, or it's costing that much, then it makes sense to maximize it because you have the materials anyway. Like building a little more is not going to be that much more money, but you could charge way more for a bigger house. So I think that my suggestion a while ago is to be able to take the interest rate with you. That was the one thing I never understood, why the rate had to stay with the house. And if you leave your house, you can't take the interest rate to another house. Like you're already approved for the loan.
Yeah.
It's already back. Like as long as it appraises for more, you would think that would be a great thing. I understand why banks don't want to be holding on to these, 3% mortgages, and they factor in that the average one is going to, be charged off in 10 years. They get their money back. And it'll encourage people to keep that loan for 30 years. So it kind of screw them.
Right.
But it would open up the housing market to be able to
I think you were the first person I heard bring that up. I think that is a very creative and genius. Because again, think about it. 600K house, you want to trade up, you take whatever that mortgage is, 500 grand. You have a second for the delta, which is maybe at a higher rate. I think that's a genius and pretty creative fix. I would hope somebody looks at that, but that could help. That would get transactions.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we're missing the entry level home, right? You got into your first home. You thought it was going to be your first home. You got a 2.9% mortgage. Now the price is up 100 grand. You probably can't even qualify for it at 2.9. Certainly not at 7. You're stuck. If you can move it, I think that's a genius move.
Yeah. The other thing was taking the property tax basis with you, at least on that
portion.
On that portion that you sell. If you double up, let's just say, then, it's a prorated basis. So half the house could be at the old property tax. I don't know how on earth.
That would get messy.
If you move to a different city or something like that. But there should be bounds where maybe if you're over the age of 65,
there you go.
Within a certain county, you're able to exchange one house for another to open up.
There are some of those, at least trade down. I know they're in California. I don't know if they're in Nevada. But if you're 65 and older, there's some county tax assessment, trade-offs like that.
Yeah.
But that would be, I think if you just did the mortgage, that would be enough of an unlock. I think that's a creative answer.
Yeah.